So as most of you know, well actually you probably don't know, but whenever I read a bunch of stupid stuff on the internet, which is every day, usually I have to take a break from that and go outside for a few minutes, talk to the pony, talk to the fountain, talk to my cherry tree, whatever. That actually makes more sense than reading some of the stupid news that gets published. And then followed by politicians and all these increasingly idiotic medical organizations. So recently, I'm sure you've all seen this, there's a lot of talk about the mutated virus and all this stuff, the Delta variant and all this, which of course takes us back to the conversation on viral mutations and how those can be prevented. And how we've had that data now for more than 20 years. So, I'm just going to talk about two things. Number one, viral mutations. What is a mutation? So we're talking about damage to the genetic material of the virus in this case. Obviously, mutations happen in other species, whatever. A mutation is simply a survivable genetic defect or genetic damage. So if a certain level of genetic damage occurs and it's lethal, then the organism dies. If the organism survives a milder change in its genetic structure, genetic code, so to speak, which usually gets played out in amino acid sequences, if it's a mild mutation or a mild damage that is survivable, then that's a mutation. If it's too severe, then the organism dies. If it is a mutation, then it becomes either relevant or irrelevant. Some mutations don't matter. But anyway, they're talking about this viral mutation. So that's what a viral mutation is. How do viral mutations occur? Usually from free radicals, just like in human beings. So what causes accelerated genetic mutations in humans? Aging, which is a factor of time, and ultimately also a factor of nutritional deficiencies and inflammation. But as you all know, exposure to radiation, for example, causes free radicals, and that causes genetic damage, and that's how radiation associates with increased cancer. So again, it's a survivable, for the cell, it's a survivable genetic mutation or genetic damage. So how do we prevent viral mutations? By reducing free radical production. How do we do that? By using antioxidants. What are the major antioxidants in this conversation? Vitamin C, N-acetylcysteine or acetylcysteine, which is apparently being taken off the market now, which tells you a lot about your government. If your government is taking a known antioxidant off the market, it's also an antiviral agent, taking an antiviral agent off the market during times of a viral pandemic. But selenium is the one that I want to get to and talk about. So we've known now for 20 years that selenium deficiency, which occurs in about 15% of the population, increases free radicals. That increases free radical mediated DNA damage, which leads to mutations in humans and animals and viruses. And that's why, for example, that we see all these mutations coming out of China, because China's territory, their land, their soil, their plants, their animals, their people are deficient in selenium. We've known that for more than 20 years now. So my point is this, and then I'm going to close this to keep it short. When we talk about viral mutations, if we're going to say it's a problem, then we should be adult enough to talk about the solutions. And at least part of the solution is correcting selenium deficiency, because that's already been proven in a study with almost 2 million people. It's been proven to reduce this incidence of viral mutation and viral-induced disease. And that should be in the news every day. People should be on selenium supplementation already. Now, of course, this isn't medical advice, but a very common dose of selenium would be 50, 100 micrograms. I mean, that's really basic. Most good clinician level, doctorate level, healthcare professional level nutritional supplements will have about 200 micrograms of selenium. Totally reasonable, totally safe as far as I know, and I've been studying this for 25 years. I've personally used and prescribed 800 micrograms for acute infections especially. Now, in some of the studies, especially acute care studies with selenium, once they get above about 1,000 micrograms, things start to get a little sketchy. In particular, I recall one study, and I don't know what the population was other than it was acute care. It could have been trauma. But they used 4,000 micrograms, and they actually had negative consequences because of that. So let's just say 4,000 is probably too much, maybe. 1,000 might be too much. 600, 800 is really reasonable for acute infection, and 100 to 200 is super reasonable for the vast majority of people, if not everyone, for routine supplementation. Remember what I said earlier, 15% of the world population has insufficient selenium intake. A consequence of that is less antioxidant protection. How? So how does selenium function as an antioxidant? If you really knew nutrition, or if someone really knows nutrition and they're asked that question, they should be able to provide at least two answers. So if you're knowledgeable about nutrition and I ask you, how does selenium function as an antioxidant, you should be able to provide a very clear answer. If you're kind of beyond basic knowledge into kind of expert level knowledge, and I'm not saying this is real deep, but I'm just saying it's more than the average person would know. Someone beyond a basic level of knowledge would be able to provide two answers. So I'll give you both answers. So selenium functions as a cofactor for an enzyme called glutathione peroxidase, the partner of which, of course, is glutathione reductase, which functions with vitamin B2. So that's how selenium functions biochemically as an antioxidant. However, you could also give another answer, and that would be that by blocking inflammatory pathways and viral replication, selenium thereby functions as an indirect antioxidant. So the old way of talking about antioxidants was they quench free radicals. For the past 15 or 10 years, I've been talking about antioxidants as being, some of them are indirect, and that is they stop the formation of free radicals in the first place. So with selenium, if you inhibit viral replication, if you inhibit NF-kappa B, then you're stopping free radicals before they're overformed, so you don't need to quench them because you've stopped the physiologic or pathophysiologic process that's involved. So those are just some things to think about. So when you hear politicians and all these news outlets talking about these variants and mutations and the Delta variants and all that stuff, the follow-up conversation based on more than 20 years of research with over 2 million patients that cannot be denied. I mean, they can't deny clinical and statistical significance in studies that contain more than 2 million people. Then when you hear them talking about variant and viral mutation and all this stupid stuff, they should have already been talking about selenium. So a responsible news report or a responsible government action would have already been encouraging at least moderate, let's say 50 to 100 micrograms of selenium supplementation for the whole population. I'm not aware of any risk whatsoever at that level, even at 200 micrograms. And I have already provided a video review of selenium toxicity, so look at my channels and you'll find that video. But I virtually don't see how toxicity would be possible at 200 or 100 micrograms. So that's the news for the day. I'll keep sending out new information, but I did see that conversation about Delta variant. I don't care about Delta variant. And no one cares either. If they don't care enough to tell you about the solution, then they shouldn't be telling you about the problem unless they're trying to manipulate you. And I would say they probably are trying to manipulate you. So think about that. Watch the video again if you need to. I'm mentally reviewing it right now, and I think what I said is accurate. May not be perfectly clear, but that's because I've only just now had coffee. So I'll talk to you all soon.